Last story for you, and it's about Brock, Roman.
That's all you said. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a we
Because
touched
there's
on
other
this,
things involved.
we touched on this a little bit last week. So there is an idea, but I don't think they're going to go ahead with it, especially from the latest conversation I had. There was an original idea at this WrestleMania to do The Rock versus Roman Reigns and to do Lashley versus Brock Lesnar. These were the two matches that you were going to do. Now, this would have meant that Brock had a very straightforward loss at the last pay-per-view where he wrestled Roman. Was it Crown Jewel, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It would have had a very, very straightforward loss, and you would have blown your load at that pay-per-view, because where we were talking about the whole thing they were going to do where Brock saved Heyman, and then Heyman would be with Brock going into the pay-per-view, and then Heyman would turn, and they would blow all of their load and do the whole story at Crown Jewel. If you remember me saying, they scrapped that angle when they knew they weren't going to do The Rock.
Yeah.
Well, what was interesting, and for people that sit here and go, Billy's not right about everything, and Billy makes stuff up, and where did you get this guy from? My dudes, I told you an angle that they decided not to do on television, but they still did it anyway this week on SmackDown, right? They literally did what I said they were going to do, but pulled it. But you know that WWE have a serious lack of good ideas. When they do something good on TV, we're all jumping up and down and saying how great it is. They do,
because we're dying of thirst.
Right. So was this not, Cav, exactly what I said they were going to do during the draft?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the same thing, right? So that pretty much, you can't get much more credible than that. So it's a weird situation because they were going to do Brock and Lashley, and they were going to do Roman and Rock. And once they decided not to do Roman and Rock, they shoehorned Brock back into this situation and had to extend this feud for as long as they possibly could. So at this moment in time, I've heard nothing else to say. Even though they're doing another one-on-one match, they still are planning to get to Mania. Perhaps this Paul Heyman thing is a twist that twists back. So they do this twist, and then Paul Heyman ends up with Roman, and you're back to square one, and now Brock is really pissed, and he goes and wins the Royal Rumble, and you get to Mania. That's the way I would see it going. The only thing that tells me that they may change course is that there is massive, massive talk about how Big E is failing as a champion. He's failing to draw, not just on the ratings, because everybody's going to put their stupid comments going, oh, the NFL, that can't be true. They know they're not going to do well in the NFL. Yeah, they do to a certain extent, but you know the key demos are not great. The merchandise sales are not great. The crowd responses are not great. So there isn't this support behind Big E in terms of a WWE champion. He's not selling promo pictures. He's selling less than, he's being outsold by Matt Riddle. He's being absolutely destroyed by RK Bro across the board in terms of popularity and merchandise sales. And that's not what should be happening with a WWE champion. The plan as of a couple of weeks ago was for Brock to face Roman Reigns and for Big E to get put over by John Cena, who's one of his best friends. So
now Cena just comes in and loses now. That's it. Yeah. Eventually, it's not going to be credible.
Yeah, but I think he can do it, a couple more times, and I think there is a more realistic belief that Big E would lose to Cena than there was when Roman did it at SummerSlam. So there is that, but from my understanding, that is very, very much going to be put on the scrap heap because they're losing belief in this champion. This isn't working at all. There's NFL numbers and then there's NFL numbers in terms of you expect to take a little bit of a dip, but these are huge dips. They're consistently sitting at 1.5, and whatever they do, they're not moving up. The key demo is really bad. I think it was like 0.35, something like that. But I haven't got that in front of me because I didn't think it was that relevant. But because I don't believe in demo. Like if you're watching, you're watching. So for me, that's all that counts.
Don't they think this is a bit of their fault, not Big E's fault? If Roman, they stuck Roman as the good guy and never changed into this, you'd be watching something else too. It's because of storyline and character of what they've done for the guy. So if they're just like, go be your goofy self that, most people don't care about, what do they expect it's going to be? They don't. What do you think is going to happen? This is them not having a story. I could care less really who is champion if they have some fantastic storylines that are going on where you give an S.
But this is the problem. Like, a lot of stuff, from my understanding, is that Big E likes the attachment to the New Day stuff. The New Day, once they were separated and were going to move onwards, and Big E was going to get a pushover on SmackDown, they didn't want to be separated. They were very upset and spoke to the company about, would you reconsider? And they said, no, we need to get Big E over on SmackDown. So this guy has stood in his own way for a long time. They've wanted to get him more. They've wanted to get him to a bigger and higher level than he wants to get to. And that's a big problem, because if you don't want to get there, if you want to drive around with your friends, playing dorks, then that's up to you. But they've had more of a commitment to this Big E push than I would say he has. But from this point on, I don't think you can blame them completely. Big E is who he is. And you can blame them possibly for 8 years of prior booking, or 9 years of prior, 8 years, I'd say, the New Day stuff. 9 years is when he came in with Dolph. Is that right? Well, he was in NXT before that. Yeah, I think 2013 he came in with Dolph. So it was 8 years, coming on to 9. And you can blame him for the way that he's been used over the years, and the fact that people may not take him seriously because he's too stained with the New Day stuff. But they didn't really make a big effort to get out of it. They had the chalk and the different music. They got rid of the chalk. I felt that was a differentiating factor that was good, and they lost it quickly. They could have gone back to the 5 gimmick, but that Triple H, Vince hates Triple H and all his ideas, and wants to kill everything that came from NXT. So they're not going to use the 5 gimmick or anything like that. So essentially, you have Big E from the New Day walking around with the WWE title. He hasn't cut a big or good promo, in my opinion. He hasn't been involved in a hot feud. I don't think he's believable in his spot. And as I said, he's not selling. He's not selling as a WWE champion should do. That comes down to the fact that people don't believe in him. And there's other people that they prefer to get behind. And this situation, Matt Riddle and Randy Orton are smoking Big E, who's supposed to be the top guy. So,
do you think that they'll wait until Mania to get this belt off of him, or do you think there's a very good chance that Lashley wins this? Because I was thinking there was a pretty good chance that he wins.
Yeah, I would say I don't know at the moment. I know what the plan was, and I don't know what direction they're going in. I think that if Lashley does win it, then you obviously shoehorn Brock into this show, and then you end up with McIntyre and Reigns on the other show for WrestleMania, which I think all round everything gets a little bit weaker. I think it is difficult to stretch Brock Lesnar out all the way to WrestleMania, but it depends what you do with this Heyman twist. I believe if you go into WrestleMania and you have it clearly defined that it's the final match between Rock and Roman, it's the final time that they're going to have a match, and Paul Heyman is clearly defined as Roman Reigns' guy, you stop this going in between backward and forward. I think you end that at this pay-per-view where Heyman shows his allegiance to Roman, and then we fully have him with the bloodline. You do Brock winning the Royal Rumble. You take him off TV for a couple of months, and he comes back, and you start to build up Mania, and it's clearly Brock versus the bloodline. Then I believe you can get something out of that, and you can also do a big gimmick like Hell in a Cell, no disqualification, whatever. I believe you can do that. On the other side, I don't see Big E carrying this title into Mania and drawing with anybody. I don't even think the Cena match really does it for me. Mm-hmm. Then again, what do you see on the other side? I could see Randy Orton. This is not information. This is my opinion. I think Randy Orton turning on Matt Riddle and winning the title. I think that's a WrestleMania match. The way the popularity that they're at, and Matt Riddle beating Randy Orton at WrestleMania for the belt, I believe that program could carry the title. But I see nothing with Big E as champion. I don't even see anything with Owens or Rollins as champion. With Bobby Lashley, I think you could do it. I think you could do the Cena match still, because that's a new opponent. You've done Rollins and Cena. You've done Owens and Cena. You've done Lashley and Cena too, but you haven't done it since way back in 2007. So you could do that again. And have it seem fresh and put Lashley over in that capacity. But who knows at this point? Like the Raw side is very, very fickle, and that's largely down to the fact that look at the contrast between the champions. One is super over. is the face and the main reason you watch wrestling on a week-to-week basis, and that includes everything on AEW. And that was one of the key things I wanted to talk about this week. In terms of that angle that they did at the end of SmackDown. SmackDown wasn't very good this week.
SmackDown was horrible, and in my notes, I wrote, suffering through the entire thing was worth it for the last 5 minutes of the show.
Well, exactly. That's what Austin did. Austin said to me, "You said this was going to be a big show, and you said this was going to be good. And this isn't good." I was like, "Just watch, just wait."
It was painful.